Hi everyone, this is the next video in the NAMELAND series of videos for design and coding of a program. Now, if you've watched the previous videos, you should already have analysed the task and written your analysis of the problem. Then you should have moved on to doing a design specification so you know the key things that your program is going to do. And then the next stage that I would recommend would be to create a structure chart. Now, when we come to do the programming task for GCSE Computer Science, you're going to need to make a similar, well, you don't actually have to make a structure chart, but it's probably the best way to go. And with a structure chart, we're going to just break the problem up in smaller and smaller parts. So the way we start, and this is called decomposition, breaking one large thing up into smaller parts. We're going to start with the main problem. And we start at the top and then we're going to break down into smaller parts, okay? Now, the things which happen on the left are going to happen before things that happen on the right. So, if you remember, the whole of this task, this programming exercise, is about being given a list of people's names, and then having that loaded into a database and then being able to do some things with those names like searching them and sorting them and outputting them to the screen. So the first thing that we're going to do, or the first level, so let's draw it like this. Now when you do this, and you do need to do this, this is one of your home study tasks, and when you do it, you can do it by hand if you want. You can take a photograph, or if you prefer, I'm sure you could do it in Word or PowerPoint or whatever program you like. Now, the very first thing that we will do in the program, or we will need to do, is to open the file, because there's a file with a list of names, okay? So that's the first part of the main program. Now, we don't need to actually plan every stage of this just at the moment. If we want, we could just skip to the very last thing that our program needs to do. And if you remember, it needs to give some sort of goodbye message, okay? Now, the way we'd actually implement this or do this in code is we would define a subroutine or a function or procedure, it depends on what language you're using, but they'll essentially do the same thing. One called main, and then main would then call open file, and then it would do some other things, and then it would call the procedure of goodbye, okay? So what else do we need to do between? Obviously open file and then goodbye. Presumably if we open a file, we'll also need to close a file at some stage. Well, the next thing that I would do is to load the name. So we've opened the file, but we then need to load the names. By the way, if you're finding this very easy, pause the video at this stage, have a go at the task yourself, and then carry on playing and see whether you've done something that's similar. Okay, so the main subroutine or procedure is going to call open file, then it will call load name. So we've now loaded all those names into the program, and because we're not doing anything anymore with that open file, we really should close the file. So we've got like a handle to the file, and we've got it open. While you've got it open, maybe another program won't be able to open it, or you won't be able to edit the file or delete the file or whatever. So it's always good practice to actually close something as soon as you've finished with it. So we're going to close the file as the next procedure. So now that we've closed the file, bearing in mind we've loaded the names into some sort of data structure, we now need to give the user those options, like what do you want to do? Do you want to display the names? Do you want to search names, sort the names? What do you want to do? So the way I personally would do that would be to have a menu, subroutine, procedure, whatever you want to call it. So what options are there in the menu? We can further decompose this, so let's do that. So I think it doesn't really matter in which order you have these options in the menu, but I'm going to suggest output names as one of the menu options, okay? And then we'll have search the names as another menu option, and we'll have sort the names I mean, you don't have to call it search. It might actually be called like search names. Probably more likely it's going to be search underscore names, and then so we have sort underscore names. So that's going to be output underscore names. Remember, I'm talking about the way that we'll actually name the procedures. And so finally, one of the options needs to be quit, because we need to quit the menu. And up to you, but you might want to call it quit menu. Just bear in mind that if you name any subroutine, you should avoid using the names of subroutines that are already defined within the programming language you're using. Let's have a think about this now. So the very first thing, when a program runs, it calls the main subroutine, which then calls the open file subroutine, and then load names, and then close file, and then menu, and then from menu if the user chooses, because basically they don't have to choose all these, it might be they only choose, say, sort names, but whichever one that they choose, then say, for example, output names will run, and then it goes back to the menu, and then the user gets to choose, say, sort names. So then they do that, then it goes back to the menu like that. Okay, and they can do that as many times as they like, but then when they've chosen quit menu, then yeah, so that's what's going to happen. Now, it's entirely up to you how you actually create the menu, but it might be that you're going to assign like a number code onto each one of these. So for example, it might be like 1 to output the name. So I might very well change this later, but let's assume that that's option 1, that's option 2, that's option 3. This could be option 4. I'm just for hell of it, I'm going to do option 9, because they don't actually have to be they don't have to be in order like that. They don't have to be numbers either. I may very well change that later. It's highly likely that you're actually going to now further split these like output names, that might be split down into smaller parts. Okay, I don't think quit menu would actually be split down into any smaller parts, but these are likely to be split down, or at least this one, I think, and that's absolutely fine. When you do your program design, it's perfectly valid to just have like this high level structure chart, and then code what you can code, and then go back to your design, and then further that might be further broken down into some other parts. That would be absolutely normal, and that would be expected. Okay, so do have a go at drawing yourself a structure chart. If you've watched the whole video and you've not yet done yourself a structure chart, then what I would recommend is to try just stop the video now, try writing a structure chart, maybe using the principles that you've learned from this video, and then compare against mine. Okay, anyway, good luck, and if you've got any questions, just contact me via Teams or send me an email. Okay, that's it for the video.